Forget the Hollywood version. The real Al Swearingen was even more ruthless, cunning, and dangerous than his foul-mouthed TV counterpart. As the mastermind behind Deadwood's infamous Gem Theater, Swearingen ruled the frontier town not with a badge or a gun, but with blackmail, intimidation, and manipulation. While others played cards and chased gold, he played people, like pawns in a deadly game. Was he a visionary entrepreneur or just a sadistic pimp with a thirst for power? The truth is far darker and far more fascinating than fiction.
Ellis Alfred Swearingen was a key figure in the early development of Deadwood, South Dakota, during the late 1800s. Known for his strong presence and sharp business instincts, he became one of the town's most influential and controversial personalities. Swearingen operated the Gem Theater, which was far more than just a performance venue. Though it advertised itself as a theater, the establishment functioned primarily as a saloon and entertainment hall, offering alcohol, music, and companionship to the many miners, drifters, and fortune seekers who poured into Deadwood during the Black Hills Gold Rush. The Gem quickly earned a reputation as one of the most prominent and lucrative businesses in town. Swearingen ran it for over 2 decades, an impressive feat given the lawlessness, economic instability, and fierce competition that defined frontier towns at the time. His success came not just from savvy business management, but from a keen understanding of human desire and frontier economics. By blending showmanship, hospitality, and strategic relationships with local officials and lawmen, Swearingen maintained the Gem's dominance in Deadwood's social and commercial life. While the establishment was often whispered about for its less than reputable activities, it also played a central role in the town's nightlife and economy. Swearingen's legacy is a complicated one. Though modern portrayals often paint him as a villain or anti-hero, the real man was emblematic of the morally complex world of the American frontier, where survival, success, and status often walked a thin line between enterprise and exploitation. Al Swearingen's personal life. Al Swearingen, whose surname has appeared in historical records under several variations, including Swearingen, Swearingen, and even Swearingen, was born in Oskaloosa, Iowa, alongside his twin brother, Lemuel. The two were the oldest among 8 children born to Daniel J. Swearingen, a farmer of Dutch-American descent, and Keziah Katie Montgomery. Swearingen's early life was rooted in the rhythms of rural Iowa. He spent much of his youth and even a portion of his adulthood living at home, which was not uncommon in agrarian families where labor was needed and resources were shared across generations. Unlike many ambitious young men of the time who struck out west in their early 20s, Al remained in Iowa well into his 30s. It wasn't until May of 1876 that Swearingen made his way to Deadwood, South Dakota, a booming frontier town that had sprung up seemingly overnight following the discovery of gold in the Black Hills. He arrived with his wife, Nettie Swearingen, as the town was transitioning from a chaotic mining camp to a more established, if still unruly, settlement. However, Swearingen's first marriage did not last. Historical accounts suggest that Nettie eventually filed for divorce, citing mistreatment within the marriage. While the specifics remain vague, court records from the time support the conclusion that the relationship became strained during their years in Deadwood. Swearingen would go on to marry 2 more times. Both subsequent unions also ended in divorce. While such a pattern may suggest difficulty in his personal relationships, it also reflects a broader trend of instability common in frontier life. The demanding environment, social isolation, and unpredictable nature of boomtown society often placed intense pressure on marriages and families. These early chapters of Swearingen's life, marked by family ties, delayed migration westward, and a turbulent marital history, offer a more humanizing view of a man who would later become one of Deadwood's most infamous figures. His personal experiences may have shaped both his resilience and his complicated approach to power and partnership in a town defined by constant change. Custer, South Dakota. Before establishing his well-known business in Deadwood, Al Swearingen had already begun carving out a reputation as a savvy and ambitious entrepreneur in the frontier town of Custer, South Dakota. During the early boom years of the Black Hills, Swearingen operated a popular entertainment venue there, a dance house that quickly became one of the liveliest spots in town. According to the Black Hills Pioneer's 1882 New Year edition, which chronicled the formative years of Custer, Swearingen's dance house was a large structure, measuring approximately 30 by 150 feet. It was reportedly so popular that crowds would gather day and night, and patrons often had to push through the busy entry just to get inside. This description speaks to both the building's size and its overwhelming popularity, highlighting Swearingen's ability to understand what attracted the frontier population, primarily miners, laborers, and settlers seeking diversion and social connection. But Custer's brief heyday was soon eclipsed by rumors of even richer prospects nearby. In January of 1876, reports began circulating that gold had been discovered in a new area known as Deadwood Gulch. These rumors quickly gained traction, and by March, a major migration was underway. The Pioneer described the exodus in vivid terms: roads packed with hopeful prospectors and fortune seekers, all abandoning Custer in search of greater opportunity. The scale of this movement was dramatic. Within a matter of weeks, Custer's population dwindled significantly, so much so that only about 100 residents remained. The rapid shift in interest was reflected in property values as well. Lots that had sold for as much as $800 just 2 months earlier were now being offered for as little as $50, with few takers. It was clear that the economic center of gravity in the Black Hills had shifted. Recognizing the change, Swearingen made a calculated decision to follow the crowd and set up shop in Deadwood. His move wasn't just about chasing profits. It demonstrated his talent for reading the mood of the frontier and positioning himself where the most opportunity could be found. This instinct would serve him well in Deadwood, where he would go on to build a business empire at the infamous Gem Theater and become one of the town's most talked about figures. Swearingen's early success in Custer and his willingness to adapt to the shifting tides of fortune reveal a man deeply in tune with the volatile world of the American West, one where towns rose and fell in a matter of months, and only the most agile entrepreneurs endured. Deadwood. When Al Swearingen first arrived in Deadwood in 1876, he wasted no time in establishing himself in the town's growing economy. His initial business venture was a modest saloon known as the Cricket, built from canvas and lumber, materials typical of early frontier structures. The Cricket offered gambling and staged prize fights, both popular forms of entertainment in a rough-and-tumble mining town where diversions were in high demand. However, Swearingen had larger ambitions. He soon closed the Cricket and used its early profits to open a far more expansive establishment, the Gem Theater. Located on the town's main thoroughfare, the Gem quickly became a cornerstone of Deadwood's nightlife. It operated as a multi-purpose venue, serving as a saloon, dance hall, and social club, and it gained a reputation as one of the most profitable and notorious businesses in the Black Hills. Behind the Gem's success was Swearingen's ability to identify and exploit the town's demographic shifts. Deadwood, like many frontier settlements, was overwhelmingly male, made up largely of miners, prospectors, and transient workers with money to spend and few outlets for leisure. Swearingen catered directly to those appetites, building an establishment that blended alcohol, music, dance, and companionship into a lucrative enterprise. Historical reports and personal accounts suggest that Swearingen actively recruited women to work at the Gem, often targeting those who were financially vulnerable or seeking a fresh start in the West. While some may have arrived voluntarily, Others were said to have been pressured into remaining through manipulative practices and a lack of better options in a lawless town. At the time, women in Deadwood had very few opportunities outside of domestic labor, and the promises of security, wages, and lodging, however temporary, could be tempting. One colorful figure from this period, Calamity Jane, is reported to have been among the gem's first dancers. According to some sources, she once traveled to Sydney, Nebraska, and returned with 10 women for Swearengen's business. Whether out of friendship, mutual interest, or entrepreneurial cooperation, this episode reveals the informal and often improvised nature of frontier recruitment and entertainment. Financially, the gem was an enormous success. Records suggest that on an average night, the establishment brought in around $5,000, and on particularly busy nights, as much as $10,000, a staggering figure for the time, equivalent to nearly $300,000 in today's money. These profits made Swearingen one of Deadwood's wealthiest businessmen and helped solidify his influence. Disaster struck on September 26, 1879, when a fire swept through much of Deadwood and reduced the original Gem Theater to ashes. But true to his enterprising nature, Swearingen rebuilt, this time creating a larger, more lavish version of the venue. The new gem was celebrated for its size and elegance, further establishing it as a symbol of both Deadwood's rough charm and its emerging sense of permanence. Swearengen's success wasn't due to business instincts alone. He also demonstrated a strong talent for political navigation. By forming key alliances and offering financial support to select town officials, he managed to keep the gem running even as others in Deadwood pushed for reform. Figures like Sheriff Seth Bullock sought to bring law, order, and respectability to the town, but Swearengen's influence shielded him from much of this effort. While Bullock and others succeeded in many aspects of civic reform, Swearingen remained largely untouched by the town's broader moral cleanup for many years. Eventually, however, the gem's reign came to an end. In 1899, another fire destroyed the rebuilt structure. This time, the gem was not reconstructed. That same year, Swearingen left Deadwood behind and entered a new phase of his life, marrying Odelia Turgeon. His departure marked the end of one of the most colorful and controversial chapters in Deadwood's early history, the death of Al Swearingen. For many years, it was commonly believed that Al Swearingen died alone and destitute, supposedly while attempting to board a moving freight train, a final, tragic image often repeated in folklore about the Old West. However, more recent research and rediscovered documents suggest a very different and far more mysterious ending. According to Swearengen's obituary and reports from newspapers published at the time, his body was discovered in the early morning hours of November 15, 1904, lying in a street in suburban Denver, Colorado. The cause of death was listed as severe trauma to the head, though few details were offered, and there was no immediate indication of an accident or clear explanation for what had happened. The circumstances surrounding his death raised more questions than answers. There were no witnesses, no reported altercation, and no evidence of robbery. While the official records avoided speculation, the unusual nature of his injuries and the public silence that followed led some historians to suspect foul play. Adding to the intrigue is the fact that just weeks earlier, Swearengen's twin brother Lemuel had also been the victim of an apparent attack. He was shot by unknown individuals, though he managed to survive the incident. Notably, like his brother, Lemuel was not robbed, leading some to believe that the two incidents might have been connected in some way. Though hard evidence is scarce and no one was ever charged in either case, the timing and similarities suggest that Swearengen's death may have been more than just misfortune. Theories have emerged over the years, ranging from business rivalries to long-standing personal grudges that may have followed him into his later life. By 1904, Swearingen had long since left Deadwood, and his days as a frontier power broker were behind him. Still, the story of his final moments remains clouded in uncertainty. Whether the result of misadventure or something more deliberate, his death adds one final, haunting chapter to the life of a man who once thrived at the center of one of the Wild West's most chaotic towns. His mysterious end, much like his life, reflects the unpredictable and often murky nature of justice and reputation in the American frontier, where the truth was often buried along with the man in popular culture. Between 2004 and 2006, the HBO television series Deadwood brought renewed attention to the historical figure of Al Swearingen, portraying him as one of the town's most influential and commanding characters. Within the fictionalized narrative, Swearingen was depicted as a complex, often harsh leader, unafraid to assert control, but also deeply entangled in the evolving political and economic future of Deadwood. The show presents Swearingen not merely as a man of power, but as someone who adapts to changing circumstances. Over time, he is shown aligning himself with broader goals, such as the annexation of Deadwood into the Dakota Territory, not out of civic duty, but because he recognizes that such developments would ultimately benefit his own business interests. This framing helped to elevate the character beyond that of a simple villain, portraying him as a strategic, if morally ambiguous figure, navigating the rough terrain of a lawless town moving toward legitimacy. In the series, a number of creative liberties were taken with Swearingen's background. He is reimagined as English-born, with his first name changed from Ellis to Albert, possibly to lend the character a certain dramatic gravitas or to distinguish him from his historical counterpart. These changes, while historically inaccurate, serve the series' larger goal of building a rich, stylized world populated by emotionally layered characters. Swearingen was portrayed by Ian McShane, whose performance was widely acclaimed for its intensity and nuance. In 2005, McShane received a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a Television Drama for the role. That same year, he was also nominated for both Emmy and Screen Actors Guild Awards, reflecting the character's central importance to the show and McShane's ability to bring him vividly to life. TV Guide later included McShane's Swearingen in its 2013 list of the 60 nastiest villains of all time, placing him at number 6, a nod to the character's morally ambiguous behavior and his lasting impression on audiences. The series also took some liberties with the historical timeline. For example, while historical records indicate that the Gem Theater officially opened in April 1877, the show depicts it as already operating during the major events of August 1876, such as the aftermath of Wild Bill Hickok's death. These shifts in chronology allowed the writers to condense and dramatize real events, blending them into the broader arcs of the show's narrative. Ian McShane later reprised his role in Deadwood, the movie, released in 2019. Set in the year 1889, the film revisits the town and its aging residents a full decade after the events of the series. The movie gave closure to many storylines and allowed fans to revisit Swearingen one last time, portrayed with the same blend of grit, wit, and vulnerability that made the character iconic. While the show took liberties with names, dates, and personalities, it succeeded in bringing renewed attention to the real Al Swearingen, a man whose historical reputation is as tangled and controversial as the fictional version made famous on screen. Al Swearingen was no ordinary saloon keeper. He wasn't the fastest gun in Deadwood or the richest man in town, but he may have been the most powerful. With charm when it suited him and cold calculation when it didn't, Swearingen built an empire from the dust and lawlessness of the frontier. The Gem Theater wasn't just a business, it was a symbol of his grip on Deadwood's soul. History has tried to sort fact from legend, but in the end, Swearingen remains one of the Wild West's most captivating contradictions. Was he a ruthless opportunist, a visionary businessman, or just a man who understood that in Deadwood, survival meant outsmarting everyone else? Whatever the truth, one thing's certain. Al Swearingen didn't just live in Deadwood, he ruled it.
Please like and share if you find the video content interesting and useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment below so as not to miss the upcoming interesting videos. Thanks for watching.